Hi, everyone. Much better now, isn't it? Well, this is going to be the last session. I'm going to try to make it palatable for everyone. I know it's going to be tricky after the food, and I'm from Spain. I'm all down for a siesta after lunch, but let's try to don't fall asleep, yeah? So we're going to talk about a very cool topic, which is adding mobile support to your existing RAD Studio applications. We're going to see a very cool example that we've been working on for our last event. But first, before that, I'm going to explain you who I am, because it's my first time here in Prague. So I'm going to do a brief introduction to who I am. I'm a pre-sales consultant at Embarcadero Technologies, but before that, I've been working with Delphi for 15 years, developing primarily an ERP, working with companies and doing all this boring stuff that companies do. But also, I've been working with microservices on Linux, but developed with Delphi. Because this is something that I really want to emphasize, because people keep thinking that Delphi is just for developing VCL applications on Windows, but we can do much more than that. And usually people tend to think about other technologies to develop Linux services, but you can do that out of the box with RAD Studio. So that's something very important to keep in mind. I've also been doing some stuff about full-stack web development. I've worked with Laravel, Codenina, so if you know about that, it's all PHP for the backend side. And also using the Vue for the JavaScript front-end side, and for CSS, I've used pretty much Bootstrap. And also, I'm a big fan of Docker. So how many of you know or use Docker? Okay, that's good. I like you. Okay, next slide. What we're going to see in this session? Well, first of all, why mobile? Why it's important to offer to your customer base a mobile application. In case you're not, you haven't developed a mobile application, what you need to do to get ready for mobile. We're also going to talk about data storage in mobile, which is very important, how we're going to store all that information, how we're going to cache all that data, and how we're going to store it securely, encrypted, etc. Then we're going to see a functional demo. Don't want to go into too much detail about the code, because I know it's quite late and we're very bored about seeing code. So I'm going to try to speak about more conceptually than actually going line by line explaining you what it does. And then if we have some spare time, we will talk about how to do a bit of app testing and deployment on the stores, pretty much Google Play Store and iOS App Store. So, okay, first point, why add mobile? Because it's a holistic solution. Pretty much everyone nowadays expect to have a mobile app on their phones for whatever product they have. A lot of people go straight to the stores and try to find whatever product or whatever solution that they want to use. And that's very powerful to understand, because mostly young generations, where the trends are changing, and we need to understand that young generations, for example, they go straight to the store and try to find the app they want to use. And if you're not there, obviously there's going to be a problem, because you're going to lose a lot of potential customers if you're not in those stores. Plus, also going to give you the chance of adding those badges on your website saying, hey, we're on the Google Play Store, we're on the iOS App Store. And that also will create extra traffic into your solutions. And also, you're going to give a round solution to all your customers, because let's be honest, everyone expects to have some functionality on an application. But it's important to understand that I'm not saying you have to throw away all your code developed with VCL. that's still valid. That's a lot of years of work. What we want to do is to give extra functionality to all these potential customers and maybe progressively keep adding new features to this application. And potentially as well to share some of that logic between a FireMonkey application and a VCL application, because that's also possible. So also a quick question. How many of you have used FireMonkey? Okay. How many of you have in production something developed with FireMonkey? Okay, that's good. The same people. I like that. Yeah, you need to use FireMonkey. If you're using Delphi or C++, so RAD Studio, you have it there already. You don't need to purchase any extra product. So just give it a try and see how easy it is to create multi-platform applications. And then you will see the potential of reusing your code, migrating it to a FireMonkey FMX application, or even have common units between those. We'll see a little demo about that. So yeah, basically holistic solution. Also, I've talked about this already. The more products you offer to your customer linked to your solutions, the more stuck they will be with them in a good way. So it will be more difficult for them to move to your competitors because you're offering them around the solution. And also, if we use solutions like Steven spoke about before, if you offer your customers an API, that's going to get into their systems. If they use those APIs, they're going to be nearly stuck with you forever because it's a pain to move to different APIs once those have been implemented in their systems. Also, as I said, it has a very lower risk and cost because you have that already. If you have RAD Studio, you already have FireMonkey there. You just need to create a new project. And you're not going to need to hire different teams to develop the app. All your Delphi developers or C++ developers can use FireMonkey. If you want to develop something for iOS, you're going to need to find Swift or Objective-C developers. Or if you want for Google, you're going to need Kotlin developers or Java developers if someone likes Java. So it's very lower risk and cost to start using FireMonkey. And I really like this one because I keep seeing a lot of customers saying, but it's nearly impossible to migrate my VCL application to FireMonkey because I've been working on that application 25 years and it's going to take me 10 at least to migrate all that. And that's the wrong approach. What we have to think about is like we have a mobile device with a set of features that are not on a desktop. For example, the camera. We need to think about adding extra features to your current software that you're not able to offer to your customers. For example, taking pictures. Imagine that we have a delivery software that tracks a delivery man and we see where they are. So we create a little API with RAD Server or any other alternative, and the delivery guy can check all the stuff they need to deliver during the day, and then they can take a picture with the application. And that's sent straight away to your server and linked with the VCL application. And the users sitting on the desktop could see that picture because everything merges together. So when we're talking about going mobile, I'm always saying go for the quick wins, even talk with your customers, see what they want, what they're missing from your application, and add those to an extra application. Because you're going to add so much functionality that it wasn't possible before. So yeah, sometimes mobile can be better. And if you don't, your competitors will. So that's something you really need to understand as well. The market of the apps is massive. And I don't even know how many thousands of apps every day are being uploaded to the stores. So if you're out there on the market, if you're not doing it, your competitors will eventually, if they haven't already. And okay, this fancy acronym means that critical mass of bring your own device. What does it mean? we all have one of these little devices in our pockets. All of us do. So we need to take advantage of that power. There is this very interesting case study of a company that they have this clock in, clock out cards. So when you get to the office, you have to register that you've gotten into the office, and the same thing when you get out. So they found out that a lot of people kept forgetting their cards at home. So they got to the office, they said, yeah, I forgot my card, so they have to go to a computer and register. So they were wasting a lot of time because people forgot their cards. What did they do? They installed, using NFC, the card built into the phone. Do you know how many people forgot their cards from that moment? 0% of people. Because if you leave home and after 5 minutes, you realize that you forgot your office card, you said, well, I'm not coming back home to take the card. But if you have forgotten your phone, I bet my left hand, and I'm left-handed, that you will come back home to get your phone. So that's a power that if you're not taking advantage already, you need to, because people are dependent of these little things. Okay, now that we're all convinced that you need an app, we're going to talk about how you're going to get ready and what we need to think about developing an app using RAD Studio. First thing is the infrastructure differences. There's a bit of a change of paradigm here, because probably if you have been using just VCL applications, you will have your application, you will connect through the network to a server that probably has, I don't know, Firebird, MySQL, Oracle, if you hate yourself. But in this case, you need a different approach. We need to use something that creates an API that we can connect remotely from our mobile devices. It could be RAD server, as we've seen, and we will see in the demo. There are other alternatives as well, in case RAD server maybe it's a bit too much, or you can use RAD server Lite, not a problem at all. We also have customers that they said, I really don't want to do this, I want an app because the users won't leave the office. It's for example, it's a warehouse. They installed a lot of Wi-Fi access points, and they created an app that connected straight away using just a FD connection using FireDAC. They connected to the server straight away like a VCL application, and that works. Yes, not the approach I would recommend, because as soon as you're out of range, things get a bit messy. If at some point you want to scale that and say, okay, I'm going to leave the warehouse, you cannot. So if you're going to start from scratch, I would really recommend you organize it properly and you create a REST API. Another option, a bit more niche, but also very interesting, is app tethering. What does it mean? Is like you use your device to connect through, let's say, Bluetooth to your computer. And you can use your device, for example, to take a picture, and that syncs to your VCL application or FireMonkey application, and then it will do its thing to synchronize with the server or whatever. That's also a very interesting approach. Obviously, you're going to be linked with a laptop, but for example, we have customers that are using it in the health industry. What they're doing is the doctor carries his laptop and then uses his phone or their phone to take a picture of, I don't know, a rash or a wound or something like that, because it's much easier than obviously not using the laptop and take a picture. So that's also a very interesting approach. Not as used as a REST API, but also very interesting. And also we have the very trendy Azure and AWS. So if you want to go the serverless route and not have a server at all, we're also providing different solutions that you can connect to the most famous cloud providers. and then you won't have a server as such. You can do that just specifically for the services that you want to spin in your FireMonkey application. But yeah, that's another option. So these are pretty much the three alternatives that you have to think about. Then we have data security and risk mitigation. We have compiled versus interpreted code. What does this mean? We need to know that FireMonkey applications are fully compiled. We're delivering binary, so we are not creating like some sort of HTML wrapper that we hide behind an app. This is in case you have been playing around with technologies like Cordova or Zapater. What you pretty much do is you create a website and then you put a web view in the application and it looks like an app, but it's really a web app. The problem with that is that you are sending with the app all the business logic that you have used. It's true that with modern technologies like React or Vue, you kind of compile the code, the JavaScript and the HTML using Webpack or Vite or this new compilers. It's not really compiling code, but it's more like obfuscation because it's difficult to read. But after all, you're still sending all your logic with the application. With FireMonkey, it's like native applications. You compile your code, and that's impossible to decrypt because it's binary. Then another very important topic is time to market. How long it will take you to go from your idea to publish your application. If you need to hire teams, let's say again, for developing an Android application or an iOS application, that's obviously going to take, apart from a lot of money, a lot of time, because you're going to have two different teams that you need to coordinate between them, because obviously you want to offer the same functionality in both applications. And I can tell you that that's a nightmare, because it's very difficult to keep the same features in two completely independent projects and then synchronize all those and release them in both stores simultaneously. With FireMonkey, you just code once and deploy for both stores. And if you add a new feature, it will be available out of the box as well. So that's really something else. And that leads to the next one, which is total cost of ownership and technical debt. If you want to go to I want to go native, I'm going to develop two individual apps. It's not also about developing those. You have to maintain those as well, because it's not just getting to the point where you have the apps. In the future, you will want to add new features. And what it implies is, again, coordinating two different teams, developing features in two different languages, and debugging in two different platforms, testing in two different platforms, and that's going to cost you even more money than just developing the app itself. So with FireMonkey, you develop once, you build once, well, technically you build twice, one for each store, but you test once, you debug once. Another key point is user experience and scalability. At first, maybe you think, okay, I'm going to develop just a mobile application, and that's fine. But then you will think, okay, why not an iPad application or an Android tablet application? With FireMonkey, you can visualize how it will look in an iPad or in an Android tablet straight away. That will improve the user experience, because you can even plan beforehand how your app will look theoretically on a tablet, and then that will be ready once you compile for the stores. So that's also something very important to understand, that it will work as well for iPad, it will work for Android tablets. Obviously, you need to pay attention to how you will distribute how you're going to lay out, the application, but that's perfectly doable as well. How do we choose the proper tooling? Obviously, I'm going to tell you FireMonkey, but yeah, let's see the multiple options and how they behave. On the left, we have the vendor tools. On the right, we have the web tech-based tools, like the ones I was talking about before. The pros on the web tech is that we have one team. Obviously, the cost of development are lower because we developed just a web-based application. We're getting to the market faster, but the cons is like we're not going to have a native user experience, because that's something that FireMonkey does as well. It is platform aware. So if once you compile for an Android application, the UI will look like Android, like the tabs, for example. On Android, the tabs are on top, but on iOS, the tabs are at the bottom, and you don't have to do anything. The application, the compiler just knows, and it will change the layout automatically and the look and feel of the application based on the platform you're compiling for. With a web-based tool, you will have a web. So you need to code your CSS or use Bootstrap or Tailwind CSS, whatever, and it will look like a web pretty much. And also we have the security problems we saw. And on the left, well, I mean, we've pretty much talked about all this. You're going to have native performance, you have native UX, but you need multiple teams, a higher developer cost, blah, blah, blah. So here's where FireMonkey lands right in the middle, because it's multi-device, it's compiled, we have native user experience because it adapts automatically. We have just one team that if you're already a RAD Studio developer, they already know how to code for that, and you can get into the market way, way faster. Let's go quickly about this one because it's a bit too much. But pretty much, this is on the left, we have the interfaces on how it works, pretty much iOS, Android, and Windows. And on the right, I'm going to just bring an example that you will quickly understand. Let's think about the camera, for example. You're coding an application that you want to use the camera. You just want to type camera.active equal true. You don't want to add conditional compilers saying this is for Android, or if I'm on Windows, then if I don't have a camera. That's all handled by the FMX and the runtime libraries that FireMonkey has, because it knows in which platform it is and uses all the interfaces that they have common code, and then it goes straight to the platform API depending on the platform you're developing. So in all your projects, what you will do is camera.active equal true, full stop. But when you use the app, it will use the native API under the hood, because FireMonkey will point straight to the Android or iOS or Windows APIs. And the same thing with the layout. We have a common layout, but once you deploy it for Android or for iOS, it changes the layout to make the look and feel of the platform that we're developing for. And we'll see a few examples of that. And on top of that, you just use your trusty Pascal or C++ code, and off you go. You have a mobile application. Choosing the right database in case you're going to develop an application that needs to cache information, that's the way you actually can see if an application has been developed properly or not. It's like if you open it and you don't have internet, nothing works. So an interesting thing is to cache information from the backend API. We store it in the device, and then we synchronize that once we have the internet. So for doing that, we need some sort of database. We're not going to store all that information in a TXT. So this is where Interbase to Go comes very, very handy, because it's included with Enterprise Edition. It doesn't cost you anything at all. You can deploy it as much as you want. And this is a fully functional database that runs on every single platform. You don't have to do anything. You have, let's say, a database engine built into your application that you can use SQL. You can do inserts, you can do updates. It's fully functional. But now that we're caching information, what's the problem? What if we're storing sensible data like credit card numbers or patient details? What happens if that phone has been stolen or you lose it? That could be a problem for the company because you need to fulfill all this GDPR stuff, mostly if you're a big company. So Interbase2Go offers encryption out of the box. You can encrypt the whole database if you want to. Or you can go a bit more granular and you can use multiple encryption keys to use, for example, based on the user that is connecting to the database to see a specific field. So you can encrypt fields specifically based on the user that connects to the application. I don't want to go into too much detail because this is about Interbase. And if you're interested in all this, because this is Interbase2Go, but obviously all this functionality, it's available as well for basic or for server Interbase. And what I really like for the mobile, and you really need to check it out, is change views, which just blew my mind once I discovered it. What it does, it's you subscribe to information on the database, and you keep working on your application. You're offline, let's say, you're on a plane without Wi-Fi, you keep working on your application, and it keeps track of all those deltas that you've been creating. And then once it connects, if you're subscribed to a specific changes, it will pull all that information automatically. And also, it will push all those modifications you've done as well. If you're interested in that kind of technology, you just need to look for change views. It's very, very cool. Okay, we're gonna see a demo now. And as I mentioned, I don't want to make a Hello World or fish demo because I'm pretty sure that most of you have seen a lot of demos with a little guy here. So let's make something a bit more interesting. So what's the demo about? We have setups that probably most of you are familiar with. We have a bunch of desktop computers using a VCL application that connects to a server. In this case, let's imagine that it's a server that runs Ubuntu 22 server, and we're using Interbase as a database. This could be any other infrastructure. It could be running Firebird, we could be running MySQL, and running on Windows, if you, for some reason, you like Windows Server. But yeah, this has been a standard for many, many, many years. You connect it straight away from the VCL application through the network. Maybe if you go a bit crazy, you can even connect remotely through a VPN, but it turns out that the VCL application works very, very slow because it depends on the speed of the internet connection you're connecting through the VPN, not the ideal scenario. So now we have all the devices out there in the wilderness. We have phones, we have tablets, we have laptops. So here's where the product that Stephen have been talking about before, which is RAD Server. We need to understand that RAD Server is not something that replaces your database or your current server. It's a middle tier that we're going to install and give extra functionality to the infrastructure that we already have. So we can even install it in the same server if we want to, or we can install it in Docker, or we can install it in a different server that connects through the network to the server in case you don't want to mess up with your production server. The possibilities are nearly endless. So we need to understand that RAD Server doesn't replace all your current infrastructure. It's just an extra layer that we add in on top. So with RAD Server, what we can do is we connect, offering an API, and also we're not opening our server, all the ports and firewalls and everything. We just cherry pick which bits we want to give access to our FireMonkey application. Also, it's important to know, if you develop a VCL application, you can also connect to APIs. That's not a limitation. So I keep talking about FireMonkey because obviously the session is about FireMonkey, but you can create VCL applications that connect to backends with APIs as well. And you can even create a web app if you want. So this is what we've been doing here. All these batches that you have, we've created a VCL application that connects to that, to a Linux server with Interbase. So all your data is stored in a server in the cloud at the moment. We created all these batches using Fast Report. So they have been printed with the QR codes, with everything. And then we created a FileMonkey application that all the stuff here have, and they can scan your QR codes and check, for example, if you have attended or not, add notes, all that information. But on top of that, we've also created a web app that you can scan your QR code yourself, and it will take you to a web app where you need to type your email, and then you have obviously more limited interaction, because I don't want you to have the same level of access as the stuff in the event. But you have also some interaction. And obviously all that syncs to the same server. So in case you, for example, send a message or you tap some interests, the stuff from the FileMonkey application will see that. Or using the VCL application, which is the one we use to create all the content, also will be automatically synced. So we're going to see this example, and I'm going to explain you roughly and showing you how it's been done through a quick demo. Okay. By the way, this is a MacBook Pro M1, so it's using the latest trendy ARM. It's not an M2 yet, but it will be it's an M1. So I'm running, because I'm getting a lot of questions about this, you can run RAD STUDIO on ARM Windows, because this is a Windows 11. Obviously, you cannot install Windows 11 x86 on these machines. You can virtualize it using Parallels. We're not giving official support yet, but I mean, I've been developing this way, and it works just amazing. So in case you're wondering, you can install Delphi on Windows, because this is Windows ARM. It's not Windows x86. And we have Delphi running and working just perfectly. So, okay. Hopefully everyone can see it properly. As I said, I don't want to make this too technical. I don't want to go line by line explaining you how it works, because sometimes it's tricky to understand someone else's code, mostly in a project that is slightly complicated. It's not like doing a Hello World, but I want to show you all the technology used and explain a bit in like a bit of detail. Okay, as Stephen talked about before, I have here BPL, which is a package. This is the RAD server bit that connects, that exposes all these endpoints to the world. And I have here a folder on the right that is common. This is because all these units I have here, they're common among all my projects. So I'm sharing the same libraries, in this case that I coded myself, for the VCL, for the FileMonkey, for the RAD server. So all this is being used in all my projects. And on top of that, then I have another extra units that the FileMonkey and VCL applications also share, which is super cool, because you just need to debug in one application and the bug is fixed everywhere. But anyway, let's run this. You're familiar with this. Stephen has been talking about it, and I'm quickly going to explain something very interesting, which is I have one resource, but obviously I want to have a layer of security here, because I want you to access to the web app and have access to very specific endpoints, but the people using the app, the FileMonkey app, I want them to have access to the rest of them. So I need to add some sort of security to, in case you get cheeky and you analyze the calls that have been done to the server, and then somehow you manage to access to the endpoints that you're not supposed to, we can add that kind of layer of security. And we use the users and groups built into RAD server. And what we do, I have 2 units here, 2 plain data modules. You probably all know data modules. I have one here called data module and another one that is called web module. What I do, if you want me, I can show you. There is a .ini file for RAD server. And what you can do is you can specify, saying, OK, people from this group in particular, you just need to create a group beforehand from the console that we've been seeing earlier. You create your users, you create your groups, and you can define, saying, hey, people from this group can only access to the web endpoints. And people from this other group can access to everything or this other specific endpoints. I can quickly show you that file, if I remember what it is. I think it's under my users. Public. Embarcadero should be an EMS here. There you go. It's the EMS server.ini. There is plenty of things that you can configure here for RAD server. We're not going to go through all this, but that's why we have the documentation. But here's where you define all the parameters, server limits, if you want to have app secrets, and then if you keep going, and you will get to the, it's a bit lower. Well, here you can also configure all the Google and Android, Google and iOS push notifications, because that's also something comes with RAD server, built-in push notifications. You need to create your certificates from Google and Apple, and you can paste those here, and then you're allowed to send push notifications as well out of the box using RAD server. It's another very cool feature. And we have here, finally, server authentication. And here's where we define, based on user roles or group roles, to which endpoints they can access or not. We have here a few examples. And resource 1, then groups X, Y, Z, blah, blah, blah. Just wanted to show you very, very quickly that you can really limit this and do a proper security with RAD server using this massive init file full of different properties. Okay. So, as I mentioned, I have the data module here with a bunch of endpoints. These are the same endpoints we've been talking about before, the EMS datasets linked to a query. In this case, we have the attendees, which is you. Obviously, when I'm not connected to the production database for security reasons, I'm not going to show in a demo all your personal details. So I have a little database, which is exactly the same one as the one we have in the production server. So here we have all the endpoints, as Stephen talked about. I'm not going to go into much detail about this because we've seen it before. We just use the attribute to define each endpoint, and then we can get all the details about the data set linked to the dataset resource. The only thing I want to, as you can see, this is a production application, and we have, in the data module, we have 360 lines-ish, and in the web module, we have 480 lines. So this is not a Hello World demo. We're talking about a fully functional application with an API exposed to web app, to FireMonkey, to VCL. So this is all the RAD server, plus a couple units I'm using here in the common to do a bit of abstraction and don't have my code too long. So we're exposing here 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, more more than 20 tables in like 1,000 lines of code. So that's something really to take into consideration. And I've been doing a lot of customization as well, because obviously this dataset resource that Stephen talked about is very cool, because you link a query, then you send the request, and you have everything ready to go. You have the get, the put, the post, everything. But sometimes, as the example he showed, you need something a bit more complex, like with nested arrays, etc. So all that code is here as well. If we come to the web module, let me quickly find it. Here we are. This is one of the most complex ones I have, which is the attendee event summary, which returns all the information about an attendee. I have this method here that I fully customized. I'm not going to go into detail. I'm going to just show you what it does. I have the endpoint here, and it creates this, which is all the information of the attendee, the information of the event is going to, all the interest they have showed, if they have any notes, if they have requested any handouts. So this endpoint, it was fully customized by me, not using the dataset resource. And all that code, this is still in the 1,000 lines. And also, I added some extra security measures. So you can see here, I don't know if you can see it, instead of having a plain ID, like 1, 2, 3, which is the standard ID, I'm not a fan of exposing those as well to the internet through a web app. So what I'm doing is I'm obfuscating all that information, so you cannot try to get to other attendees' endpoints. And on top of that as well, thanks to RAD server, if you try to access your badge and access to the website, once you put your email, if it's that hash ID is equal to your email, then you get a token. I give you a token using RAD server, so I'm adding an extra layer of security as well. So the only one open is to verify if it's you, but from there, you need a token to keep accessing the rest of the endpoints. And that can be done as well with RAD server. You need to send me then afterwards the request with a token included in the header. If you're not familiar with APIs, probably all this sounds very weird to you, but if you're familiar with REST API development, you know that tokens is very, very common, or API keys. So this is pretty much that. I'm still using RAD server for all that. Not for the encryption, I'm not going to lie, that's not built into RAD server. I did it myself because I wanted to. And also, obviously, we can access, as we've seen as well earlier, information about the specific event, send in just the ID. This is going through data. So this one is open to the users in the web in the FireMonkey application. Hence, I didn't obfuscated anything. But this one, it goes to a different endpoint, a different resource. Sorry, it's going to web instead of data. That's why I abstracted those two, and then I can add those security measures through that EMS server.ini. Okay, enough of this. I'm going to keep my little server running, and I'm going to show you the VCL application that I have right here in the same project. Let's compile this. In this case, it's going to be Windows 64. And this one, as you can see as well, let me open that. I don't know if you all can see that, but I have as well the common folder that in this case I'm using some extra libraries as well. That these are the ones I'm sharing between FireMonkey and VCL. I created my own endpoint with a REST adapter, so I can use the get, put, post in an easier way because it creates everything for me manually. But yeah, I share that between the FireMonkey and the VCL application. Okay, let's quickly compile the VCL. Let's see something instead of just code, which is going to be nicer. And of course, it doesn't compile. What's going on? Oh, sorry, I forgot. There you go. So this is the VCL application. This could be your application, not a problem at all. This is purely VCL, Windows compile. We have the tabs here. We have more tabs here. We have the combo boxes. We have the navigation bar. We have an input here. Also, by the way, don't think that VCL is legacy. You can still make them cool. You can use the styles from RAD Studio. We have this little button here with just one line of code. I can make my app look much cooler. And this literally took me one line of code. So you can tell that to your customers, saying, yeah, this has been a 6-month project. And you can use all the styles that are built in and modernize your VCL application. I keep talking here like I don't like VCL applications. That's not the whole point. I'm focusing on FireMonkey because that's the purpose of this session. But yeah, VCL is still very cool. So yeah, here we have a list of attendees. We have a list of events with information. We have here on the right who's coming to the event. We can print the badges. Maybe these ones look familiar to you. So yeah, this is a proof that all this has been created with this VCL application. We have products, all the products that you will see on the, if you access the web app, or the staff can see if you scan your QR code with the application. Well, very basic VCL application, but functional to create. Also, we have here the staff. So it's the users that will, because the staff using the application, they need to log in with their credentials. So I'm creating the users here, and they create automatically into RAD server as well. So that's, and I specify the password, etc. So this is pretty much it. Fairly basic FireMonkey application. Sorry, VCL application. And now it comes the cool bit, because I created this from scratch. All the back end, it's also accessing through the RAD server. So I'm not connecting to the database straight using a connection. So I created this VCL application using also RAD server as a backend. That's why I have all those units shared between the FireMonkey and the VCL, because I can use the same endpoints and everything to access the data. Again, I won't go into too much detail about how all this is done. Only will tell you that you have the response dataset adapter, and I'm moving what I'm getting from the JSON file and putting it in a mem table, and then linking that with the data source straight to a grid. And this is very cool as well, because you have plenty of EMS objects that they come with RAD Studio as well. You have the EMS provider that you can use to connect to your RAD server backend, and you can test that as well. Let me quickly test connection. Okay, I'm connected to the server. And then you can have another very handy object, which is backend authentication. You just need to put the two properties saying, okay, this is this user, and it has this password, and then you can create a button and say, authenticate, and then you get a yes or no. So also, to get a list of all the backend users, or get a list of all the backend groups, that helps you as well to create new groups, create new users, all that out of the box, because I link all these components, I link them to the EMS provider. So I just need to link them, and then I have all that functionality. I hope you're not getting too bored. And I also quickly show you the other module, which is the database. This is pretty much very standard VCL as well. You have plenty of, in this case, are mem tables, but it could be a standard query component, and a lot of data source components that are linked to all these grids around, and that's it. So we have very basic VCL. Okay, now let's open the cool one, which is the mobile application, FireMonkey. This is the start of the application, and for the development of this one, I've used, in case you haven't heard about it, a very, very cool library that is called FrameStand. You can download that from Get It, because it makes your life way easier when it comes to creating multiple frames and views and move around. If you haven't checked it, I'm not going to go into detail, but spend a couple hours playing around with it. It comes with a lot of examples that are very cool to develop responsive applications that obviously in tablets you want to show something, but on mobiles you don't. It's a very, very cool. And also I've used one of the new features from 11.3, which is biometric authentication. Out of the box, you don't have to do anything apart from dropping that component there, and you can use the biometric authenticate, and if it's okay, it will return true, and that's it. That's one of the examples I was talking about. Let me quickly find it for you. Authentication, Antonio. Yeah, you have all these methods saying if the authentication fails, if the authentication success, and then you can use the, if biometric auth can authenticate, then authenticate it, otherwise show the loading frame, etc. So it's very, very simple to use and so powerful to implement biometric authentication in both platforms, because this works with Face ID or Touch ID if you're on iOS, or with fingerprint reader if you're on Android. And I don't have to care about on which platform I am, it just works. Okay, so let's compile this first for Windows, which is going to be very cool. I'm going to quickly show you that I'm using exactly the same modules that I'm using for the VCL application. I have the database and the API modules, and they're the same one I was using in the VCL. So I'm sharing all this code between a VCL and a FireMonkey application. Okay, let's compile this. And here we have the app. It's very basic as well. We have a list of events that we can move around, and we can see a list or the list of attendees. I want to emphasize that all this is creating requests to my backend automatically. And if I access an attendee, let's come back to the Prague event, I can see the details of the user. I can get a list of the product interested in. I can take notes with a little pop-up I created myself as well. And I can create new notes, and all that is being registered automatically, sending a get, a post, a put, whatever it is. And because we're on Windows, this is FireMonkey, we get Windows filling. We have the tabs up here, they look very Windows. Also, we have here quite a standard multi-view. This is the burger, also known as burger menu. And we have a combo box here that it looks very, very Windows. And also we have the QR code reader. If I press it, hello everyone. I'm using the camera on my laptop right here. Okay, you can say, okay, but this is Windows. I want to see this running somewhere else. This is not very exciting. Okay, because we're on M1 MacBook Pro, what we can do, if you haven't heard about PA Server, it comes also with RAD Studio. It's something that you need to execute in your remote machine you want to compile for. If, for example, if you're compiling for Linux, you need to run PA Server in the Linux machine. If you want to compile for macOS or iOS, you need to run it on your Mac. So in this case, it's the same machine, but you could be on your Windows machine and having a MacBook that is in the same network. You just need to create a profile, point to that IP, and that's it. So in this case, I'm running it here. And let's come here and let's say, okay, I want to compile this for iOS simulator ARM. This is important to understand that this is only possible if you're running an M1 or M2 If you have an Intel-based MacBook, sorry, but that doesn't work. You will need to plug in your iOS device and create a certificate and the whole thing. So here on the right, because I'm on a simulator, I get straight away all the possible devices. So let's get, for example, an iPhone 14 Pro. And I click compile, and now I'm compiling for iOS. It's going to take a few seconds to compile. I want to emphasize that this is exactly the same source code, and I'm not touching anything, and we're going to see how the simulator will open automatically, and it will open the app with exactly, well, not exactly, because we're going to see that the UI changes a bit, because we're on iOS, we're not on Windows. Now should move to deploying. There you go. We have all plenty of features as well built in to create all the icons and everything for all the platforms. And there you go. It asks for my personal phone, because this is iOS, it's not iOS, it's not RAD Studio. But we have the application running now on an iPhone 14 Pro simulator. And as we can see, the look and feel is pretty much the same. But, for example, the tabs now are down here, because that's why the tabs are on iOS by default. If you say, but I don't want the tabs down there, because it's also this trend nowadays that people like to have their apps looking exactly the same in every platform for the user experience, UX, blah, blah, blah. If you want to do that, it's not a problem. You can use the styles as well in FireMonkey, and you can create your apps looking exactly the same in iOS and Android if that's what you want to. For example, if you use Netflix and you cannot even tell if you're on an iOS or Android device. If that's your approach, you can do it as well using the styles. And in case the tabs is even simpler, because it has a property that says, I want the tabs platform-based, or I want them aligned to the top, and that's it. But yeah, as you can see, we have the app now compiled natively for iOS. And even though this looks pretty much the same, we're going to notice that now when I click here, instead of seeing a drop-down menu, what we were seeing before on Windows, now we get the bottom one, because this is how iOS works. Same thing with Android. We don't have that on Android. You see a screen with radio buttons. So that will work out of the box as well, because FireMonkey knows that a combo box looks different on every platform. And this is calling that interface I was talking about before. The compiler does all that work for you. You don't have to, when you design it, you're going to say, I want a combo box here. And let's be honest, testing things on Windows is going to be faster just to see the look and feel. And once you're happy with that, then you will test it on Android or on iOS and see how it looks. And you can tweak things to make them look better if you want to. OK. As I said, you come here, let's go to notes. We can create a new note. Now, we can see that this works as well, exactly as it was working before. And all this information has been synced automatically with the server. So I could see all this information from the VCL application as well, if you wanted to. OK. But now let's twist this even a bit further, and I say, you know what? I want a macOS application. OK. I'm going to compile for a macOS ARM, native ARM, the same source code. I haven't changed a line of code. And now using exactly the same PA server that is running here, because it's running on macOS, and I'm telling the compiler that I want to test this on macOS, is going to deploy it on that platform in particular. Just wait a couple of seconds, and we're going to see exactly the same app, but now with a macOS look and feel. And after this, I promise you there's going to be the last bit of code, and we will keep talking about other stuff. There you go. We have our app running now on macOS. If we come here to the multi-view, now we see that we have again a drop-down menu, but now it's a more macOS look and feel. The list view as well, we have this blue, which is quite a standard as well on macOS. But if we access this, we have the tabs on top, then now they look like macOS tabs as well. And we have these buttons that I created myself because I wanted them to look the same in all the platforms. And now comes the question, Antonio, how many people worked in this project? How many months has been spent to create all this project from scratch? Well, this has been created in 1 month. The 3 solutions, I'm talking about the FireMonkey application. Well, I'm lying, I haven't done the web app. But the VCL application, the FireMonkey application, RAD server has been done in a month by just me. And I'm not saying with this that I'm an amazing coder. I'm saying that if I can do it, definitely you can as well. So the thing is, you need to understand how rad this is. You can develop very, 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 very quickly and put on market your application very, very quickly. And not only on the market, as you can see, if you want your application on Mac, off you go. You have it as well. Okay. So enough, well, and also, just to quickly show you, because I don't have, because of the bloody USBs, I cannot use an Android. I didn't bring the cable. But you could compile for Android as well. And actually, it's easier because you can, I'm going to explain it quickly. In case you want to try it on your Android device, you can put it in developer mode, and you can straight away send the application to your Android device. So let's quickly come back now to the presentation. So yeah, as I was talking about before, let's quickly see it in the demo. It's going to be easier. If you have here, the look and feel, it changes as well based on the device you choose. So if you select Windows, here you have macOS, then you can see that the buttons change a bit. You have iOS, the button here as well. So you can test things even here on the IDE itself before compiling, how things will look. Obviously, this is the default behavior of FireMonkey. You can customize all this if you want to. But this is given to you out of the box. So if you don't like this designing stuff and you just want things to work, that's the way to go. So this is called FireUI, and it's multi-device designer. You can see pretty much things how they will look before even compiling, as I mentioned. You have multiple options. If you have a secondary monitor, you can even create like a preview in multiple devices as well that you can use. And this is what I was talking about before. If you have an Android device, you can, I mean, you can find on the internet this information for sure. How to put the device in developer mode, and you can compile if you plug it in straight away from RAD Studio to your Android device, and you will see the application on the device itself. With iOS, it's not that simple, not because of RAD Studio, but because how picky Apple is, because you need to be a valid developer. They let you use the emulator, but if you want to try an actual device, you need to be an active developer, a subscription-paying developer with Apple. But with Android, you activate developer mode, off you go. You don't need to pay the license to be a developer. We're going to talk about that in a second. Yeah, I mean, also, sometimes it changes based on the device. But yeah, this is pretty much just tapping a few things here and there. Then you will get a warning on your device saying, hey, I want to connect this device. RAD Studio is asking permission to, just click OK, and that's it. And then it comes the bit I'm not that fan of, which is deploying to the stores. I'm not going to say it's a matter of a couple hours, not because of RAD Studio again, but because all the stuff they need to fulfill to be able to upload things. we're trying to give as many options as possible to make your life easier, to create all the manifests, to save the key stores generated for the Play Store. All that information, you can configure it here. This is all information that you need to go through one time to create a developer account with Apple and with Android. Once you have it and you've been verified and your app has been verified for the first time, things will be much easier for future updates. But yeah, the process, it takes sometimes a bit. But yeah, once you've done it, you can save all the information here, and you can, if you're going to develop for iOS, you're going to need a MacBook mandatorily. You cannot compile from Windows to iOS if you don't have a Mac device. But yeah, you can blame Apple for that, not us. And as I mentioned, we're giving as many options as possible for provisioning manifests and all that boring stuff that the stores force you to do. And that's pretty much it. I won't bore you anymore. Hope you enjoyed it and you found it interesting. If you have any questions, yeah, sure. Not yet. I'm not gonna lie. I could say yes and lie to you, but no, because I've done it in a month. I want to implement properly interface to go. So for future events, I will show as well how to implement. But because this has been a bit of a rush, and as I mentioned, has been developed just by one person, me, in 1 month, I didn't have time to do all the offline functionality. But yeah, it will have it. Yeah, I'm also very interested, but I mean, one person has just a number of hours a day. Thank you. Any other questions? Okay. Well, hope you enjoyed it. I hope you didn't get too bored. And you have my email. If you're not feeling comfortable speaking English or whatever, please drop me an email. I will be more than happy to be on a call with you or reply by email. But yeah, thank you very much.